In August this year, I was sitting in the Security Council hall. It was the day that people of Gaza and Palestine were standing in a queue for food. Many among those were children, and they never made it home. And in front of me were the world's most powerful ambassadors debating the situation in the Middle East. The room that I was sitting in was meant to protect humanity. So I looked at the marble wall behind them, and I couldn't stop but thinking, what if United Nations spoke with our voices? What if it spoke with the voices of young people? In the 21st century, would we still be arguing about the very fact that people should have a right to exist? The return of children from being abducted from one of the Council's very own members? Would we argue over veto power, over the respect of international law? Or would we finally try to communicate above the division, stand up for people, not for power? 80 years ago, indeed, older generation, 50 countries from the past, sat down in a table in San Francisco. And they have seen the worst of humanity. They have seen cities being torn apart. They have seen hatred destroying the whole generations. But they knew deep inside that the only way to counter violence was through cooperation. And on that day, they signed the UN Charter, which is the most beautiful document that humankind has ever produced. And the UN Charter starts with the words, "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save the succeeding generations." They knew that peace wasn't something simple. And they knew that they will have to strive to build peace as a permanent thing. And indeed, the future generations proved them right. Their children fought for the same values. They fought for war against war in Vietnam. They stood up in Gdańsk for Solidarność. They took the hammers and went to destroy the Berlin Wall to bring back freedom and unity. Each and every time, it was ordinary people, especially young people, who knew that peace was never inherited. It was something that we need to build to keep the UN promise alive. And this is where perhaps we come in. Because the question here is about peace and security. We measure security in numbers. We measure that in weapons, in borders, in budgets. But real security begins somewhere much closer to our homes. It is in our classrooms, where each of you is feeling seen and heard. It starts in communities which are resilient and can, yes, disagree with each other, but without falling apart. It starts when people just don't feel afraid to lose their belongings or their dignity. There is no national security without human security. And as I said before, this is where our generation perhaps can come in to continue the work that the UN Charter started. So that might surprise you, but the very same Security Council that often feels so distant to us did something quite remarkable 10 years ago. It adopted a resolution, 2020-50. Now, I am aware that the word resolution may not sound too appealing or exciting to you, but that one was different. It was called Youth, Peace, Security, and for the first time in history, 193 member states said there will be no peace, no lasting security, unless young people are part of that. That was the very words of that resolution. And in a few countries, we have seen that it works. We have seen in Nigeria where it was young people who counter extremism with education. It was young people in Kosovo who tried to get a dialogue above any division. And it was the same young people who showed that every $1 invested in prevention can save up to $16 in crisis response later, according to UN World Bank. It really showed us that it's possible that grassroots action of young people can be part of just and lasting peace in the future. Now, of course, as you may imagine, we're not even halfway there, and this resolution to become reality needs much more work and engagement from member states. So which is why exactly this year, 70 of us, youth delegates from across different continents and countries, signed a joint appeal to Security Council. We asked for two things. One, we asked for every country to adopt a national action plan for young people and with young people. And two, we asked to get a seat as young people at the Security Council. Now, obviously, that might sound very ambitious, and we have heard from senior leaders that we're being too idealistic. But so was the UN once. Because peace will never be lasting unless we get everyone to create it. And this is perhaps also where your presence matters here today. Because you could have chosen to be anywhere else. You could have been at classes or around, right? But you wanted to come here to listen, to speak. You chose to care. Maybe you're already leading a project in your community. Maybe you're mentoring others. Maybe you're still trying to make a sense out of the world. And maybe at times you just feel tired. Because every time we open the news, it seems so hard to be able to change the system, which seems too big and complicated. But when that moment comes, I want you to go back to what I said at the beginning and remember one thing. Every generation, 80 years ago, 80 years from now, will be tested with the same challenges. How to move from power to partnerships. How to move from fear to trust. From silence to solidarity. So I want you to go back to the Security Council seat and imagine for a second you were there. What would you say? Because the power of that seat, does it come from the flag in front or from the marble wall in the Security Council hall? It comes from a very simple belief that every person in every community can have a piece of responsibility for our common future. So I will leave you with that. What if peace wasn't just a job for diplomats? What if what you're doing actually mattered the most for the future generations? What if peace begins right here with you? Thank you.